All right, guys, we're back. We're going to take a look at some comments. So let's take a look here and see what we got going. I don't have a computer, so we just have to do it here on my cell phone. If it loads, there it is. Okay. So there's a good comment here on this last video that I posted. This comes from Josh956RGV. This is an interesting one we tell. He says, great informational video. Do you think reds will eat a paddle tail or popping cork with shrimp imitation with shrimp scent there in Rattlesnake Bay? And then he goes on to say, yesterday I hit back of Green Island. So this is 2 days ago. So this is on the 27th, I think, on Sunday. So it was on Sundays when he went out. And he says, yesterday I hit back of Green Island, which was Sunday, east of the houses, south of the arroyo mouth, and the grass flats in between. So that's telling me, I'm taking that as 3 different places that he hit the backside of Green Island, and then he went east of the houses, which is what I usually refer to as east of Duncan's house. And then that was south of the arroyo mouth and the grass flats in between. So he's talking about the grass flats between, I would think, Bird Island and Duncan's house. Those are all my favorite spots. I love fishing all these spots that he's mentioned here so far. Went out during the major and didn't see a red out there at all. So he's questioning that. He didn't see one at all. I caught 1 keeper trout and oversized. Missed lure behind houses in grass flats. I'm not sure what he means by that. I guess he was using lures behind houses and grass flats, but that was it. Am I missing something? Areas I was fishing looked great, but was empty. Tide was going out to low tide and fished through low tide as well. So this gentleman's got a good question here. He makes some points. So I guess he went out this past Sunday. And I'm sorry it's taking so long for me to get back because I work nights and I just got off work. So I'm going to sit down and cover some of these comments and just make a quick little video about it. So let's just start off at the top of his questions. Do you think reds will eat paddle tail or popping cork with shrimp imitation with shrimp scent there in Rattlesnake Bay? I wouldn't see why not. I don't fish. Well, let's just put it this way. I usually don't. I think I've done it maybe once or twice, and I've never caught anything by using a popping cork and then putting, whether it's a paddle tail or a shrimp imitation on the bottom, and then using either like like I have the Procure, so Procure, and they make it in all kinds. The varieties that I have is shrimp, mullet, and then whatever the original secret sauce Procure. And I do have another one. It's a Ballyhoo. I have that one also, but it's not Procure. It's made by somebody else. So I have like 3 or 4 different scents is what I have. But I generally don't fish paddle tails below corks and popping corks, or just put it this way, artificial. Soft plastic. That's the word that I'm looking for. I usually don't fish soft plastic like that. If I'm going to fish soft plastic, I'm going to fish soft plastic. But what I'm just saying is I do see people out there doing that. So they must catch something on them. I did try it one time in El Morro Bay with a DOA shrimp on the bottom of a popping cork, and I did use the Procure shrimp flavor on it, and I popped that thing for a long time, and I never even got a hit. Not even the catfish would bite it. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that day in those circumstances that I was in, it didn't work. And no sooner than I pulled out my top water, which was my redhead not bunker, but my redhead version of it, I started catching reds. I was throwing all types of different stuff out there to see, because that day that I went out, there was no live bait available nowhere. It was just one of those days where like the wind was blowing too much and they couldn't go out that morning, or it was just that there weren't any shrimp in the bay and nobody caught anything to bring it back. So that was an all artificial day. So when I went out, I didn't have any live bait at all. I think I even stopped and tried to catch some, and I caught very few. There was a lot of water in the bay, and the bait wasn't normally where it normally would be, you know, for finger mullet. So I didn't really have much luck there. So what I used artificial, and I started off with that. I started off with popping a DOA shrimp below a Back Bay Thunder rig, and I popped it for a good while, and I never got a hit on it. I put the Procure on it and this and that, and nothing. So once I took that off, and then I switched to an XPS orange and black wake bait, but that thing kept diving too deep and it was catching in the grass. So I took that off after a few throws, and then I put on that redhead. This one right here. Let me get it. So I put this one on, and this is made by Bass Pro. It's their offshore angler, and this is a wake bait, and it's called Redhead. And I put this on out there in El Morro Bay, and man, first cast out, boom, redfish. You know, and then it was just, you know, I caught redfish on it the rest of the day out there just using this one. And I caught a 29-inch at the end of the day. Well, not at the end of the day, but at the end of the time I was fishing, I only fished for 4 hours, and 3 to 4 hours. And the last one that I caught was a 29-inch red on that. So does it work? I'm sure it does. It's just the day that I tried it, I didn't have any success with it that day. I went back to just regular top water, and then that worked just fine. So that's just something you would have to, you know, mess with. Because like I said, I see people down there when I'm putting in at the dock at Tom A, and I see them down there, you know, they got their boats in the water and they're rigging up their poles. And I see people that put those soft plastics on the ends, popping corks. And so they must catch them like that, because I wouldn't think you'd be doing it and not be catching anything and it's not producing. So I guess it just depends upon where you're at and if you pick the right one. At that day, I was using DOA shrimp, and apparently it wasn't the right one to be using, you know, to get anything to bite on it. So that's my 2 cents. It probably will, like I say, it probably will work. And I have recovered lines out there to where they were lost that had paddle tails on them and popping corks, to where I guess either it was snapped by a fish or whatever. And I usually pick up, because I don't like trash and stuff. Like when I see it, I usually pick it up and bring it back. And there's been quite a few times that I've picked up popping cork rigs floating out on the lower Laguna Madre that had some type of jig below it, some type of soft plastic jig. So I would say yes, it should work. I'm thinking maybe the reason why it didn't work for me that morning out in El Morro Bay is maybe my Procure was too old. So I'm thinking you have to have fresh scent, because if it's been in your tackle box a while, I think there's probably an expiration date on it. You know what I mean? And the fish like that fresh smell. So if it doesn't have that fresh smell, the game fish aren't going to come after it. What you're going to catch are hardheads, you know, those tourist trout. But like I said, it should work. Just make sure it's fresh, and it should work. And you may have to change it up because it may not just be one type of paddle tail. You may have to go to something else to try it. But you know, I'll try once I get back on the water. I'm going to try some more of that, and I'll explore this and see what works and what doesn't work. All I know is it's just not something that I don't really do, because usually if I'm going to pop the cork, I'm going to pop the cork with live shrimp. And then I'm going to run top water. Those are my two games. That's what I like. I used to use soft plastic back in the day, but now that I'm older, I like hard baits. I'm into using hard baits and of course live bait, which I've always used. Let's see what else he's got to say here. Then he says, yesterday, which would be Sunday, I hit the back of Green Island, east of the houses, south of the Arroyo mouth. So back of Green Island, this is how I read it, because there's no houses over there. So I'm saying his first stop was back of Green Island. That's where he hit first. And then whatever, I guess he didn't produce anything there. And so then he moved, and he said, then he went to east of houses, south of the Arroyo mouth. So if you're going south of the Arroyo mouth, that's going to be heading towards Three Islands. So the houses there are down there, and the first one that you come up on is Duncan's old fishing cabin house that's there. That's the first one in that line and row. So that would be, you know, east of Duncan's house or east of Three Islands. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm gathering from what he's saying here. That's where that's the area that he was fishing. And that's a really good area. I think I've made one video out there. I don't venture out like I used to out in that area, but that's always good. Anything back behind Three Islands out there and Duncan's house, really good area for redfish, for trout, occasional drum, but really good for reds and trout. And an occasional, what they call an inshore lizard fish. I've caught those back there too. And I've caught those also in Rattlesnake Bay. Inshore lizard fish. So those are in those areas too. I've caught them behind Three Islands, and I've also caught them out in Rattlesnake Bay. So, and he says, and then the grass flats in between. So I'm thinking the grass flats between Bird Island and Duncan's old house. And that's one of my favorite places. I drift that area all the time. A lot of the videos that I make that you see where I'm catching the redfish, where I say are right there between Bird Island and Duncan's house, and that big open grass flat clear water area. It's directly across from Rattlesnake Bay. And he said he went out and during the major and did not see a red out there at all. So let me show you how I go about it. Like I say, there's no correct way to fish. Everybody has their own way of doing it. And like I say, whatever works for you, stick to whatever works for you. But let me show you what I do. This is what I do before I even go out. I used to always be a high tide guy. You go at high tide and you fish it. And which was good. I caught fish, but this is how I do it now. Look, sorry about that, guys. Let's go back to this. So you see right here where it says tides for fishing. So let's go to this. This is what I use. I use tides for fishing. So let's go into here. So I already have mine preset. It lets you set it for anything up and down the coast. And I mean, you can pick the spots wherever. So I put in North America, United States. I put in Texas, and then it gives you for down here in the valley. I think it only gives you 3. It gives you South Padre Island, Queen Isabella Causeway, and Port Isabel for here in the valley. It doesn't give you Arroyo City. It doesn't give you Port Mansfield, which is a shame. I wish it did. Hopefully, maybe eventually they'll add that to this. So I preset it to. Oh, let's go back. I preset it North America. Let me get it up here so you can see it. North America, United States, Texas, Port Isabel. So let's go. Now we're going to pick the day. So he said he went out on the 27th. Because this post was on Tuesday that he posted to my channel. So he said he went out, or on Monday, I think. But so it was Sunday was when he went out. So you'll mark Sunday on this cylinder chart. And then let's start looking at this and let's see what it had for Sunday. So let me get it up here. So it says on Sunday, 27th of April, 2025, the sun rose in Port Isabel at 6:54 a.m. and sun was at sunset at 7:59. In the high tide and low tide chart, we can see that the high tide was at 5:08 a.m. and the low tide was at 9:43 p.m. So that was a long day that you had a high tide pretty much all day long. Before the sun came up and until the sun set, and way after the sun set, it was high tide. So back in my high tide day guy, when I used to always go at high tide, I'd see that and I'd be all over this, because it's high tide, high tide, high tide. But let's see what else it says. It says we had 13 hours and 4 minutes of sun. The solar transit was at 1:26. So what it's saying is once it crossed the meridian in the sky, that was at 1:26 p.m. So you got to remember, fish are tied to gravitational movement. So you have the gravitational movement of it going up, making the fish want to feed, and then you have the gravitational movement of the sun going down and setting. And this system here uses both. It uses both the sun and the moon. So let's see what else we got here going. So this is what it shows for that day. So if you look at that, that's pretty interesting. So it's showing you at 12 a.m. there was a major bite. Because why? Because it was going at 12 a.m. it was going from low tide to high tide. So from 12 a.m. to 5:08 a.m. you had a really good time to be on the water to catch fish, because the fish were moving and they were feeding in this chart, how it lines it out. And then at 6 a.m. you had a minor bite. And then again at 12 p.m., you see that? Between 12 and 2-hour window there, you had another major bite. Because look, the tide is going down. So the tide was at its peak at 5:08 a.m. And as that tide rose from low tide to high tide, that was the best time to be on the water to where the fish were going to have the highest activity on that day. And then the minor was at 6 a.m. And then they had another major that day because it was going from high tide to low tide. And that swing from high tide to low tide, that 2-hour window, was at 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And that's when the highest activity of the fish, that you're going to have the greatest opportunity to catch the most fish. And then, of course, the minor bite at 8 p.m. And then, of course, low tide hit at 9:43. So that's showing you that it's got a good swing there. So that's a good day. I would have been all over this if my boat was already ready and back in the water. This would have been a good day. And what I look for too, this is one thing that I look for. I'm a big tidal coefficient guy. I like big swings and the tidal coefficient. If there's not a big swing in that, more than likely I'm not going to go out and fish. I mean, if I didn't have anything else to do, then I may go out and just try it and see how good the fishing is. But also another thing with the fish moving and to have more fish activity, not only between high tide and low tide, and the fishing, the major, the minor bite, another thing that you got to look for is you want high numbers in coefficient. because that's telling you it's going to be a big swing from high tide to low tide, or from low tide to high tide. And that makes the fish even get more aggressive and feed even more, get more active, you know, in their feeding, more aggressive in their feeding. So, so it tells you right here, the heights were 1.6 feet to negative 0.3 foot, you know. And then it says we can compare these levels with the maximum high tide recorded in tide tables of Port Isabel, so we don't need to worry about that, from 2.3 feet and a minimum of negative 1 foot. So here, we'll just do the chart. Chart's the easiest. All right. So as you can see, remember, the major started right here at 12 a.m. because the tide was rising. So between 12 and 2, it was the highest bite, and then you had that down period until you got to 6 a.m. when you had the minor that they came back around. And then again, as the tide was going out, the next major was at 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And then the minor was at 8 p.m. right before you hit low tide. So if you look at that coefficient here at the top, that's a big dip from here to here. That's a good tidal swing. And like I say, I love high coefficients. I'm a high coefficient kind of guy when I go out and I go fishing. So I look at that. So he had that right too. That was a good day. And he's saying that he didn't hardly catch anything. That's surprisingly. So, and if you want to get into tidal coefficients, you can go in there. I don't have a subscription. I think they have a subscription and an app to this. I don't have any of that. I just log onto their website and just get this free information, and that's all I ever use off of it. You know, I'm sure that they probably break more other stuff down for you and all that. Everything I really need, I find right here under the freebie part of this website. And then it says the following graph shows the progression of tidal coefficients in the month. So this is the entire month. So when you're looking here, what I'm seeing here, man, this is gold. To me, it's telling me right here, the month of April is a good month to be out fishing. Because look at these big swings you got here. From 35 to 85 to 34 to 109, like where we were just at this past weekend. Those are big swings. Those fish are going to be moving during those big swings. Now, what can affect this is weather. So you have to remember now, you gather all this data, and you have to take into account the exceptions. An exception to this would be temperature in the water. You remember, if you're a flats guy and you're fishing in the flats, if it's a super, super hot day, the fish aren't going to be in the flats. But we're only in April, so it's not that hot. It's only in the 80s. You know, I don't even think we've hit 90, maybe 1 or 2 days, and that's about it. And maybe 100, maybe 1 day so far. So to me, that wasn't the issue for him that day. The fish should have been there. They should have been moving. I mean, just everything that I'm seeing on this shows me, you know. And like I say, I love high coefficients and very high coefficients. So now we're going to go to the chart. So you see how this uses the moon and the sun. This works off of both, a gravitational pull. So on the day that he went out, well, let me kind of explain this chart to you. So it's going to give you the bite times, the tide times, and then it's going to tell you what the coefficient is here. And then it's going to tell you under the solar activity, meaning the sun and the moon activity, whether it's an average day, below average day, above average day, or an exceptional day to go fishing. So when it has one fish marked in the bar here, that means it's just going to be an average day of fishing. When it doesn't have any fish, it's going to be a subpar day for fishing. And now just let me show you. Now, things that I've learned on this, I've gone out where there's been high coefficients and it shows it's a subpar day and I've caught fish. Because why? Because the coefficient is high. And I have also gone out when the coefficient is low, like down in the 40s here, like where you see here where it says that it's in the 40s, and below that in the 30s. And I haven't caught anything on a subpar day. You know, I mean, I caught one or two, but nothing great. You know what I mean? So, so I'm always, you know, big about looking at this. This is my deal. So I pick the highest days of the month, and that's how I fish. So let's go down here and take a look. Like you see, like right here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row that the fishing would be excellent out there on the lower Laguna Madre. So if I was going to go out, I would work some of these days in there for me to go. And let's go down to the 27th, right? He's on the 27th. So here he is, 27th. So he was on there. He was in the right place because Sunday, well, actually, look, let's back up. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday were excellent days to be out there fishing on the lower Laguna Madre. The fish activity should have been high, and if you know, were in place before the major and the minor, at least an hour or two before those happened, you should have done well. Just by reading this chart. And this is what I go by, guys, when I go out and fish. Back in the day, I was just a high tide guy. I would always pick up those little tide charts, you know, at the convenience store, at the bait shop, and it gives you all the tides for the month. I would go down and I would see all the dates that were high tide, full moon, new moon, and I would earmark those off, and those would be the days that I would go out and fish. And I did. I caught a lot of fish on high tide days, but I'd have to spend all day out there on the water. All day I'd have to be out there. And now that I follow this Soliner chart, I don't have to be out there as long. All I have to do is know the time of the major and the minor, and I usually show up an hour or two before. And you got to remember, when I say an hour or two before, Port Isabel, you're going by its tide chart, that buoy is into the bay. So what is that telling you? The tide has already come in. Even though it hasn't reached that buoy yet, the tide is already at high tide about an hour earlier. So that's why you got to make an adjustment, because it takes so long for the water to rise to where it's at. But the tide had already come in. So you always just have to keep that in mind, that you have to make an hour and a half adjustment in whatever it says here because of the location where you're at if you're fishing at Arroyo City. What else is here? So let's see what they say here. Port Isabel predictions valid references for sport fishing and near areas close to Port Isabel. All right, so that's just some disclaimers. Same thing there. So the day that he was out there, he had a really good setup, because he had the sun and the moon were out at the same time. The moon came up at 6:34 a.m. and it set at 8:13. So he had a double gravitational pull. Man, the fish should have really been feeding. That's just surprisingly he didn't do better. Just by looking at this, man, if I see all this, I'm like, wow, that's why whenever you see me in the beginning of the video and I talk about how I'm highly anticipating that we're going to be on them quick and this and that, because I've sat here and I've done this and I've looked at this, and when I see, especially when the moon and the sun are rising at the same time, the fish really ought to be moving. So it's telling you lunar transit is the time in which the moon crosses the local meridian. And that day, it crossed at just about the same time, look at that, as the sun did. So they were almost moving in unison across the sky, the sun and the moon. They both almost rose at the same time together, and they both almost set at the same time together. That's some strong gravitational pull for the tide. That's why you had such a big swing in the tidal chart. So it says here the length of the time the moon was visible was 13 hours and 39 minutes, which was pretty much all day. So right now we've passed the spring equinox, which was back in March, between March 21st and 23rd. The days are starting to get longer and longer and longer. You're going to have more daylight hours all the way up to June 21st to 23rd, because that's when you hit the summer solstice. And the summer solstice is the longest day of the year, because after that the daylight starts to get shorter and shorter and shorter, all the way down to the fall equinox, which is in September, and then the winter solstice, which is in December, which is the shortest day of the year. You have the least amount of daylight on those days. So just kind of a little FYI there. That's what it's talking about there. So solar activity, this is what it says, very high. So this chart is saying, since you have a double, meaning a moon and a sun rising and setting at the same time, very high. And according to the solar theory, was an excellent day. The 27th that he was out there was an excellent day for fishing. The fish activity forecast was very high. So there should have been plenty of opportunity to cash in. And he said all he caught was one trout and one oversized. I don't know how long he was out there. I don't know if he was out there for the whole day, because he said he hit the major. So the major was, what did it say, about 2 in the afternoon, right? Wasn't the major 2 in the afternoon? Let's go back up here and see where the major was. Between 12 and 2, I think that's when the major was. Yeah, between 12 and 2. Well, you had 2 majors. I'm pretty sure he wasn't out there at 12 a.m. So he was on the water between 12 and 2. And I don't know how much longer he stayed. But the minor would have been good that day. The major would have been good. I mean, pretty much all day that day in this whole tidal swing from 5:08 down to when actually low tide came in. Would have been good. The fish would have been feeding. And that's what he's saying, that he didn't do so well. So I'm not sure what happened there, because this is what I always look at. And then look right here. Look what it tells you. Best times of the day for fishing. So see, I follow this religiously, man. Very high activity from 12:23 p.m. to 2:23 p.m. Minor periods from 6:04 to 7:04, and from a.m. and then also at 7:43 p.m. to 8:43 p.m., which is sunset. That's when the sun's setting, because you got to remember we got longer daylight hours. So the sun sets about that time. And then see, moonset, the period is high activity, coincides with sunset. So it's telling you even have even more activity, fish activity moving in the bay, because the sun and the moon are both up at the same time and they're both setting at the same time. And here we have it. The major, minor, major, minor. And see how it shows the sun and the moon rising together at 7:04 a.m. and the sun and the moon setting together at 7:43 p.m. So that's what I look at, guys. If you're kind of wondering what I go by, I'm a solar guy. You hear me talk about it in the videos, that I go by the major and the minor. Everything that I read here, that Josh went out, and on that day I would have gone out too, because that would, if my boat was ready to go, I would have been on the water on this day, because this is just reeks of great success here, that the fish are moving, because you have a really super strong, extra strong gravitational pull, because both the moon and the sun are out at the same time. So let's go back to his question here and let's see what Josh has here. So see, he went out during the major. So if the major, I'm assuming, is the one he's talking about in the daytime, which is between 12 and 2, and didn't see a red out there at all in the flats. And then he says, I caught one keeper trout and one oversized trout. But I don't know what he means by missed lure, maybe messed with lures behind houses and grass flats, but that was it. And he's asking, am I missing something? all the signs that I would see, I would have been out there that same day that he was out there. Why he wasn't successful, I don't know, because to me, that's a perfect day to go. He picked the right times. I mean, he picked everything. That's perfect. He was out there at the right time. He's in the right area. I mean, it's not that hot yet. The reds should have been in the flats. They should have been moving and feeding. The only thing that I would have been probably added to that, wherever he stopped in these areas that he's talking about, behind Green Island, east of the houses, and the grass flats in between, I would have been looking for signs of them moving in the water, you know, as I'm scouting the area. I would have been looking for bait fish moving, my oil slicks that I like fishing. I always fish in oil slicks. If you ever look in the videos, you'll see if there's an oil slick out there, I'm going to sit right in the middle of it and I'm going to drift right through it. I would also look for any signs of game fish moving in the water too. I mean, it kind of got me mind boggled too that he didn't do better than what he did. He should have done a lot better than what he did. And like I say, just sometimes, I mean, like I've told you, you lay the best plans, and for nothing happens. I mean, in the video I covered the other day, I went to Holly Beach out there, and everything was perfect. I went at the major, first thing in the morning, you know, all the water looked good, and nothing. I didn't even get a bite. I didn't start catching redfish until late in the afternoon when the sun was setting for the minor bite. And then I caught them. I caught them real quick. I caught 5 right in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just happens at times, sometimes like that. I would not get dismayed. I would regroup. I'm not sure what type of artificial that he's fishing. Maybe that wasn't if he's fishing soft plastic, maybe that wasn't the right color to attract him on the day. That's one thing I like about hard bait, is the color scheme's pretty simple, man. You know, this kind of color scheme, murky water, the darker it is, the clearer water. Whereas, when I used to fish paddle tails, you're always like, oh, should I fish the green? Should I fish the coffee one? Should I fish the red one, the purple one, the orange one? You gotta rotate through them and try them out. This makes it pretty simple, man. Lighter it is, the darker the water. The darker it is, like this one, the clearer the water. You know, that's just what I found in my own experiences being out there on the lower Laguna Madre. Josh, you picked the correct day, buddy. I mean, hell, if my boat was fixed, I'd be right out there with you that day. I would have been out there on the lower Laguna Madre that day too, because that on the chart, it's showing that it was off the chart for fishing that day. And I'm sorry that you didn't do better. I don't think you're missing anything. I just think it happens sometimes. Like I say, we lay the best plans that we can make, and we go out there, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But just keep at it. I would maybe change up, use a different type of, if you're using artificial, since you're a soft plastic guy, change up with some type of different soft plastic next time, and just check like your ProCure and stuff. If you're using that, or whatever type of additive you're using on the soft plastic, just make sure it's fresh, because that's one thing about them. You know, the game fish are finicky. They like fresh smells, and if it's something that's been sitting around for a while, then that's probably not gonna attract them to it. You know. And let's see if we got anything else. So, any fish through low tide as well. All the signs were there, Josh. You picked the right day, man. You picked the right time, the right day, and you should have done better. You know, the factors that would change that would be weather. If the water's turned up, if the wind's, well, and even in the wind, you see, I've gone out in 40 50-mile-an-hour winds, and I still catch them, you know. But Sunday was a good day, you know. But good question. Really good question. I think you're doing everything right. I just think you would just need to probably check if you're using any type of Procure stuff on your soft plastics. Just check the dates on them. Make sure that they're fresh. And just maybe change up your soft plastic to something different. Because you're using paddle tails, I guess. From what I read here. But you hit all the spots that I love hitting. Green Island, east of the houses, south of the mouth of the arroyo, the flats in between. I fish all those. I love those areas. Let's see what else we got here. I've been waiting anxiously for your next video. I love watching your videos. Hey, how much live shrimp do you buy for yourself, a pint or a quart? So, I kind of usually buy more than what I need. I buy a quart, and I nowhere use it, nowhere nearly use it at all. And this one's from Gerardo. So Gerardo, what I usually do is I get a quart, but most of the time I'm giving it away. And when I come back in, I always have so much live shrimp left. I usually give it to people at the dock that are either fishing around the dock there that can't afford to get the shrimp, and they're just fishing with frozen or whatever, and they can't afford the live, or they're fishing with cut bait or whatever, or with livers or whatever they're doing. And I try to give it to the people that are fishing off the shore there around the dock. And if there is an angler going out on the boat, I'll offer it. If I don't have anybody there by the dock, I'll offer it to them. And then they usually look at me kind of strange, like, well, I'm not buying it from you. And I said, well, that's not what I told you. I just asked you if you want it. You know, I'm giving it to you, man. I'm not here to sell it to you because I'm going home. I don't need it anymore, you know. But I do give it away because I don't want it to go to waste. I can probably get by with a pint and a half, but I'm a creature of habit. I'll buy a quart because I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to stay out there longer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And of course, that never happens. And so when I come back, I still usually have a lot of shrimp in the live well. And then sometimes I'll get on using artificial, and I won't even use the shrimp at all. It'll just stay in the live well. So that's usually where it's at. I buy a quart, but I can get by with a pint or a pint and a quart, or a pint and a half. Let's see what else we have here.
Okay, guys.
Any other unanswered ones? So, let's see. This one has 14 here that I've answered, but let's see what they are. This is from South Texas Flats Fishing. Awesome video and very informative. I really appreciate your contribution to all anglers. Thank you. So that's my hope, is that I inspire people to go out, pick up a fishing pole, and to go enjoy the lower Laguna Madre as I do. You know, this guy here is terrific. He says the boat ramps open again at the park. So what I'm thinking here is, what he's thinking about is the park at on North Padre Island, out there at Bird Island Basin, because I've been talking about it a few times in these comments that eventually, once I get the boat all squared away, I'm going to be doing some traveling, and I'll be fishing, you know, up the coast of Texas. And one of them is Bird Island Basin, that I've got plans of going out drift fishing that area, you know, in the Rockport area, drift fishing there, and so on, up and down the line. So I guess that's what he's talking about, because for the longest time they were under construction. But one guy did say, yeah, that it's fixed, but you can still put in next to it in the sand right there. My favorite method of fishing, yeah, see, Bird Island Basin. So this guy here is Joe. Cabrera. And he's from Corpus Christi because he fishes Bird Island Basin. I definitely want to go fish that area. I see it on Google Maps, and there's some deep areas too. And on your way out there after you put in at that boat ramp there on Padre Island, I definitely want to try this. So that's a fishing trip in the future and a future video eventually down the line, somewhere down the line. Coco here says, great video, good tips you share. Although you said that area is 18 to 20 inches. Yeah, on average, guys, I usually fish in 18 to 20 inches, sometimes between 18 and 24 inches. That's usually my areas of fishing. Every now and then there'll be some 3 foot because of the potholes and stuff. And, you know, you'll find some 3 foot areas. But way back there in the grass flats, it's usually between 18 and 20 inches is what it is. What does it say here? Really now? It says, nice work. Is that a light bar on the front of your console? If so, your thoughts on it. So I did reply to this. I used to have one. I used to have a sound bar and a light bar mounted on top of my console, and I took them both off. I 86'd the sound bar right off the bat. It didn't really fit into my routine out there. I'm not one that plays blaring loud music, or playing music, not out there on the water while I'm fishing. I like to hear the sounds of what's around me and stuff, the birds, the water, just those senses. I mean, if I'm going to listen to music, I can listen to that on my ride down there in my truck. So I took that off. That never really worked for me. It's sitting in the garage over there somewhere, stored away. Then the next thing was the light bar. The light bar, 2 reasons why I took it off. The first reason is when I would be moving, the wind on the fins that cool the back of the light bar, the wind would whistle through there and it'd make a super loud whistling sound, and that got to be annoying. And then the second reason was, as far back that it was on the boat, it didn't really give me the effects that I needed to see while I'm driving at night. Meaning that the light would shine bright. Oh, it was bright. It was real bright. But it would cast onto the deck, and then the deck would cast a big shadow right straight in front of the bow of the boat. So it defeated the purpose of having it there. So I took it off. If I'm going to use a light bar, I'm kind of leery, because if you see in the original videos of the boat, it had a light bar originally mounted at the bow, is where it had one. That would be the way to go back to. I'm kind of leery of putting it back on there. But either have it right at the tip of the bow, or you need to have it high and elevated and angled down. So that's how you get the most benefits of having a light bar. I just went back to a regular old spotlight that you just plug into the cigarette lighter and you spot it as you go. That's what I've done for 20 years with the old Dargle. So that's what I do with that one. Same thing. Let's see what else we got here. A lot of good questions, guys. You can keep them coming. If I can answer them, I'll answer them. So let's see what's on this one. Really now, again, thanks for posting more of your detailed content. You're welcome. Like I say, these are digital memories for me. This is what happened. I don't put anything extra in there to make it seem like something else happened other than what actually happened. This is what actually happened on the day that I was out there on the Lower Laguna Madre. That's what all these videos are about. It's my personal experience out on the Lower Laguna Madre on those days. It's a digital record of that. Geraldo here is again. He says, nice video. I used to fish all those areas back in the 90s also. So he knows of these places that I'm talking about, especially east of Three Islands. Yeah, night fishing. I used to do a lot of night fishing out there behind Three Islands back in the day in my old Dargo boat. He wants to go out. Maybe, Geraldo. We might do that one of these days if it works out, man. And he's got an old Mayak, 21 foot. Hey, John Mayak, guys. John Mayak took it to the next level for shallow water fishing, man, and shallow water running when he created the RFL series. My boat is actually made by Steve Bell. He's the founder of Showwater. And he actually patterned my boat off of Mayak's RFL series. The only difference that he really made in it is he put a bigger tunnel underneath it. Because if you look up underneath, they're almost the same on the curvature and everything. But the only difference is the Showwater has a bigger, wider tunnel. And I think maybe longer. Might be a little bit longer. But it's definitely a lot wider to push more water up in there. But Mayak, John Mayak, you can't take anything from him, man. He was an innovator too, man. He led the way in shallow water running out there in the Corpus Christi area for many years. That RFL series, well, one of the best shallow running boats you can ever buy, man. Can't take anything from him. Let's see. Oh, I got Josh again here. Okay, Josh, let's see what you said here. It says, looking to get a 17-foot Mako Pro Skiff. Okay, so you're the guy with the Pro Skiff. Cool, okay. You're the one that just went out. So, Josh, you did pick a great day. Why it didn't work out better? I'm glad that your Pro Skiff made it out there. Do you have some kind of tunnel on it? That would be something I'd like to know. Are Mako putting tunnels on those now? And how deep was the water in the areas that you were at? And basically how shallow did you get? That's basically what I'd like to know. So whenever this video posts, if you could please just put it in the comments, because I'd like to know what your experience is with that Mako in the flats and how well it performed for you out there. And he says to do similar fishing here in the Laguna Madre. Will this be a good boat to buy? So like I said, traditionally Makos, they're skiffs. They usually don't have tunnels. So I don't know if they are doing like cat Makos now that have some sort of tunnel on them now. I'd have to go over to Bass Pro and take a look, because I know Bass Pro sells them over there. I don't really pay attention to their boats, but I have seen Mako in their line, so maybe they make one with a tunnel now. That's a skiff. Mako's been around. They've been around for a long time. They're just not really a traditional flats boat to get into super shallow running water. So it's going to be able to go out there. It's all going to depend upon how far the lower end unit hangs below the bottom of the hull and the back. That's going to determine how shallow you're going to get in and get up in. So if it's hanging a foot, or if it's hanging 18 inches, that ought to tell you that you're going to need 2 feet of water or 20 inches of water to get up in, and you're still going to be hitting bottom. But please, buddy, put it in the comments about how it's been working for you, because I'd like to know how that Mako's been, and how shallow you can get in and how shallow you can get up. The only way you know is just go out there and try it. It's just, I've never owned one. I've seen them out there, but I've never seen them deep in the flats. Not way, way, way deep into the flats. I've never seen anybody in the Mako. Usually it's a shallow sport. It's a Mayak. It's a Dargo. It's a shallow runner. It's a show water. There's plenty of them, man. There's bukus upon bukus of flats boats that people make here in Texas. What's that little one, the small one that you see? That one gets some real shallow water. That's made over here in San Benito. Freedom, those Freedom series boats. Freedom Mexicito or something, or Freedom something. It's like a scooter. It's a catamaran scooter is what it is. So those get pretty shallow too, and get into pretty shallow water and get up in pretty shallow water. New water, that's another shallow running boat. It's made for the flats. But Josh, I am interested. If that's what you were out in at Mako, drop a comment in on this video and let me know how it does out there. I'm curious. I just know, I know Dargo boats because I fished out of one for 20 years, and of course show water boats. I've got a lot of respect for Mayak. Hands down, there's nothing you can say bad about a Mayak, shoot. Those things can get super skinny. I mean, super skinny. Just like new water, they can get super skinny. Shallow sport is really big down here. It's made out here. I think it's still made out here in Bayview. It used to be. There, you can't take anything from a shallow sport. Everybody gets brand specific, like this is it. No other boat is better than this boat. There are a lot of good shallow flats boat makers. I mean, shallow sport makes a good boat. You got people that hate them, but you can't take away from them. They make a really good boat, and they get shallow. If I was going to get a shallow sport, if I could find one, I don't even know if you can find them anymore. The old fantail, because you know how they're straight on the sponsons in the back like this. The old fantail fans out like this. That's the shallowest running shallow sport boat that was ever made. And if you can ever come across one of those, yeah, definitely worth picking it up, because if you like fishing super skinny water, that boat can get into some super skinny water. So they're all good. The flats boats, it doesn't matter what brand it is. If it's a flats boat and it's got either the cats, I don't think the cats, unless it's size specific. So just from my observation, like I said, I've never owned a cat, but I know they're popular now. I think the bigger the boat is, like if you've got a 23-foot, 24-foot catamaran, or you just say even a 20-foot catamaran, whether it's a show water, shallow sport, well, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Or it's a Mayak. Those boats, I don't think, get in the super skinny. You know what I mean? I think you need, 18, 20 inches, 24 inches to get up in. Now, there are smaller versions that they make of those cats. Like, say, take the Shoalwater 19 cat. Now, I think that boat, like you got to say, this is just an observation because I've never owned one or never fished off of one. Just from my observation of seeing one, that 19 cat can probably really get in super skinny and get up. All those boats can run across skinny water. Let me just throw that out there. They can run across 2 inches, 3 inches of water, but if they stop, you can forget it. You're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Or if they're in 10 inches of water, I don't think any of those bigger models will get up. Because like my boat, the cutoff is about 10 inches. It struggles. You saw in that one video with Robert, we were in about 8-10 inches of water, and that was about the limit for my boat of getting up. But that was on a soft bottom. If it was in hard sand, it might have been a different story. I don't know. I've never tried getting up in hard sand. And that shallow of water. Usually I have a little bit more. Usually I have about 14 inches when I'm in hard sand. But that's something I can try in the future once the new motor's all rigged out and stuff and on the boat, and then I'm out back on the lower Laguna Madre. So the bigger the boat is, probably the smoother the ride, the more stable the ride. The shorter the boat is, the shallower you're going to get, just by far. And what I like about that show water, it's a 20-foot boat, and it gets pretty darn shallow for being such a big platform. I mean, it'll get pretty shallow, and that's why I chose that boat. I just think the bigger cats, I don't think that they can perform. I mean, you can probably have a big enough motor. If you got a 300 horsepower hanging off the bat, then you can blow a hole and get up in mud. It's not going to matter, but it's not good for the motor. You know what I mean? And just plow right through the mud, and it'll go, man. But I think in that 19-foot range, whether it's in the Mayak, shallow sport, show water, I think those for flats fishing are the better flats boat in the super skinny. On the modern versions of them, the catamaran versions is what I'm talking about, that everybody makes now. That's just from my observation. The way they sit in the water, they sit pretty shallow. They don't have a super heavy engine on the back. They usually have a 115 on the back. Between a 115, every now and then you'll see one. Well, I don't think I've ever seen a 19-foot show water with a 150 on the back. I think the max you can put on is like 120 or something, 115, 120. So you don't have a lot of weight hanging off back there. In the skinny, it's all about weight. It's a trade-off. If you're going to fish the super skinny, you need to be as light as possible. I think the reason why Shallow Sport stopped making their 15-foot scooters is because of the weight. Because it's so light, you can only put X amount of weight. So say gas, gear, and the person that's on it, say it's 700 pounds, 600 pounds. So to be legal in the state of Texas, I think that's where they were running into legality issues. I don't think they produce a 15-foot anymore at all. I think it's bigger. I think it's bigger. I don't even think they do a 15 or a 14, whatever they used to do. They don't do that size anymore. That's real small size, because it just legality issues, liability issues. You know what I mean? But that's what you'll find. You know, the bigger boats are probably more comfortable to ride in, and the smaller boats aren't as comfortable, but the smaller boats are going to get you up in the skinny water. And that's just my 2 cents. Like I said, I've never owned one, but that's just my observations when I see them out there on the water for those guys. Let's take a couple of more, and that's going to be it, because we're already at an hour, so I don't want to keep it too long for you here. Let's see what else we got here. Josh, let me know how that skiff's working out for you. You know, how well it's doing out there, because I am curious to see how well it performs out there. Let's take a look here. Let's see what we got. Come on. Well, it's not going to let me. There it is. Sorry. Let's see what this says here. All right, so we got really now on this one. He says, keep them coming. Yes, sir. We'll keep them coming for you. Thank you. Geraldo again. Sweet. What's the name of the island that you drifted by? Just curious. I want to say probably in this video, he's probably talking about Hobnail and Rattlesnake Island. Let's see what Rattlesnake Island and Hobnail Island. So the two, well, there's more than one island out there in Rattlesnake Bay, but the two biggest ones that are in the center of the bay out there is Rattlesnake Island and Hobnail Island. And I fish either side of those, front side, back side. You catch fish on either side. It's from Daniel Trevino. That bigger boat was the one stuck in Rattlesnake Bay. Okay, so what he's talking about here, he's talking about the Sarah T, I think it is, that's out there in Rattlesnake Bay, that's anchored out there right next to Rattlesnake Island. That's not one that was stuck out there. That boat was deliberately put out there as a floating cabin, and they have it up for sale. Not really for sale. They'll pay you $1,000. I think I put the link in here for him. So they have it on Facebook. So let's see if it's still posted, or did they already give it away? So here it is. This is the one that he's talking about. This one's been out there. It's been a fixture in Rattlesnake Bay for many years now. So it's a 30-foot Bertram vessel. And this post is off of Facebook out of Ingleside. So let's see what it says here. It says, "This is currently our floating cabin where we camp and fish. We would like to give away this vessel for free to anyone who wants her, because we want to relocate our floating cabin permit and build a small cabin." So they're looking at building another floating cabin somewhere else. And it says, "This vessel is located in Rattlesnake Bay near Arroyo City. She is anchored out in the water about 5 miles from the nearest boat ramp, which is Adolph Tomei County Park. We do not have a trailer for her. Anyone who wants her must be able to tow her out. She is anchored in 2 feet of water. We have the title, paperwork, and bill of sale, and are willing to sign anything for anyone who is up to the task to haul her out, because I want this vessel gone, but don't have time to move her myself. I am willing to pay $1,000 to whomever takes her. Not only is she free, but I'll pay you $1,000 either cash or Venmo, whatever that is, whatever works for you. This vessel has no engine. It was removed in order to designate it a floating cabin. No engine, and I don't know what engine it had or if there is anything drive related installed. I literally get 30 messages on this boat an hour, so I don't respond to is it available, and I don't plan to give my phone number until I know you've seen her and are serious. I've given my personal number to 10 people and so on." Okay, so like I said, let's see, I guess you can't go in here, but that boat has been out there. I've never seen anybody on this boat. I've fished Rattlesnake Bay many a times, many a years, and that Sarah boat has been out there. And I usually use it because it's going to be sad that it's gone, because I usually use it to mark my drift. I gauge my distance as I'm working my clock pattern, and this is my starting point, is when I work against the bank of Horse Island there, working that bank. So it's going to be sad that it's going to be gone. I'm no longer going to have that reference point. But yeah, I guess if you're interested in it, but that's the history of that boat, if you guys are wondering. That's why it's out there. It's a floating cabin. I've never seen anybody on it, but I guess apparently they've used it before. And now they want to move their permit somewhere else, and they want somebody to come get it and haul it off. So if you're interested, it's on Facebook. Out of Ingleside, Texas. That's where they posted it. Let's see what else we got here. Slange 455. So let's see what Slange says. Would like to try that with a bay boat. What's the average depth? No jack plate. Think draft is 12 inches. So you'll be able to, he's talking about Rattlesnake Bay. So Slang, you'll be able to get in there in certain areas with no jack plate. But when you get closer to Horse Island, Rattlesnake Island, the spoil banks that are next to the intercoastal, the water gets really shallow. So you're going to need some type of jack plate, and preferably a tunnel haul, preferably, but at least for sure a jack plate and a short skeg motor. As long as you got a 20-inch transom and a jack plate, you should be able to go pretty much, not pretty much everywhere, but in a lot of places in that bay, because it does get pretty shallow, and there's a lot of mud bars, a few sand bars, but a lot of mud bars around Hobnail Island and on the back side of Rattlesnake Island. There's a lot of mud bars back there. So yeah, certain places you can, because I know the main entrance right there by Arroyo City, if you stay in that middle of that gut, there's a gut that they trenched in there, that they dredged, and it goes in there I don't know how many yards, and it kind of makes a curve, and if you stay in that, that's usually 5, 6, 8 feet deep. and then eventually it stops, and then of course it goes from 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet, and so on as you get closer to the island. So let's see if there's one more we'll take before we cut this off. Another rattlesnake one. So let's see what this one says here. Josh again. Okay, what has he got here? I think I've answered this, but let's see. Do you have a video of how you take off and come back from the dock solo? So yeah, I linked that in here for him. How I do it. I don't have one how I load up yet. I don't think I've ever videotaped that. But I have a 30-foot bow line rope that I clip in the front of the bow, and then I tie that to right below the winch that cranks the boat up onto the trailer. And then I release all my lines, and then when I back it into the water down there at the dock, you'll see it. It's in whatever video this is. It's in this video. And it'll just come, and it comes right off, and it slides right back, and then I get out, grab the rope, and I tie it off. So it's pretty easy. The problem is I don't have my guide poles, so getting it back on is a little bit more work than taking it off. But now that I repaired the trailer, I got brand new guide poles, so it should be easy to stick it back in there onto the trailer. But good question. Really now, great work. Okay, thanks again. You're welcome. Then Joe Cabrera, again from Corpus. He's from Corpus Christi. What power and action are your 8.6 rods? Medium, heavy, fast? So mine are medium, heavy, fast. They're the brand from Bass Pro, which is offshore angler, but the model number is inshore extreme, and it's a medium, heavy, fast, I think is what it is. 'Cause I put all that information in here for him online from where I bought them. So let's take a look, see what we got here. So Bass Pro offshore angler, brand, model, inshore angler extreme. That's the serial number on it. 12 to 20 pound, 3/8 to 2 ounce lures. And I love fishing, whatchamacallit? I think they're 5/8 ounce. 5/8. Most of my wake bait, like this is a 3/8 ounce lure right here. See how it's a little smaller? This is a 5/8 ounce lure. So my preference is 5/8. 3/8 is okay, but I prefer a 5/8 ounce lure. And they work great on those big rods. They're nice stiff rods. They work really good. And then on their website, it says that it's a medium heavy action fast. So yeah, guys, keep the questions coming. And I'll probably do more of these videos where I'm answering questions. So Josh, like I said, on your day out there on the 27th, all the signs were perfect. I wish you would have done better. It's got me thinking, wondering why you didn't have greater success just catching that one keeper and one oversize. Put in a comment on this video what plastic were you using, what type of artificial were you using. Put that in there, and let me see what you're using and what color it is and this and that. And because the water you were in, most of it, well, unless you were deep in the grass flat, is going to be a little murky. It's going to have some clarity, but not a lot. Won't be crystal clear like it is way back in the shallows. But yeah, let me know, Josh. And anybody else, man, put in some other questions, and like I say, I'll answer them. So let me cut it off because we're already like an hour and 15 minutes into this, and I need to get to bed because before I know it, it's going to be time for me to go back to work again. But like I say, guys, fishing is a matter of preference. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. There's no right way to do it. You do what works for you, and the more you do it, you're going to find out. you're going to have success. The better you're going to get. We all have the days like Josh had that you don't really catch a lot, but then you're going to see the more you're doing it, those are going to be few and far between. You're going to have more days where you've caught more, and more bigger sizes than when you did not. So don't be dismayed. Just think about it. You get to fish the lower Laguna Madre. That's one of the greatest gifts that we have. We have that right here in our backyard, and it's free. And it only costs us the gas in our truck, the gas in the boat, and the rigging and stuff for our poles and stuff to go out there and to enjoy it. And I enjoy it even when I don't catch fish. So I'm going to sign it off here. So Cassie, Rusty, and me, one of these days, we'll see you guys out on the lower Laguna Madre. Y'all have a good day.